Welcome to the Escape the System channel. I'm Joe Barnes, author of the books Escape the System and The Rebel Code. And in today's video, I'm going to be doing a tier list for self-help books. Now, the books you see down below are all books that I've read. Some of them more than once, some of them 2, 3, or 4 times. There are 15 of them. Of course, I've read many more self-help books than 15. But for the sake of brevity of this video, not turning it into a 45-minute or an hour long video, I decided to just do 15 now. And if this video is popular with you guys, I will release a part 2 where I cover another 15 books. So if some of your favorites aren't on this list, then they may well be on the next list. So, without further ado, I've got all the books listed alphabetically below, and I'm going to go through them one by one and rank them accordingly. Now, with the tier list, S, I'm guessing is for super. It's above A, B, C, D. So S is the all-time greats, the absolute pinnacle. And funnily enough, we're going to start off with one which goes right in that category. We're going to put James Allen's As a Man Thinketh as an absolute goat of the self-help books and works. This will only take you, if you haven't read it already, you can read it for free. You can just download a PDF. But it'll only take you an hour and a half to read, hour and 15 minutes, depends on how quickly you read. But it is absolutely brilliant. It explores the link between how our thoughts create our reality. There is no better book out there on how your thoughts create your reality. It's engaging, it's well written, something about it just sinks into your mind, inspires you. It's almost as if somebody has written the key to life in 1 hour 15-minute read. There is absolutely nothing wrong with it. I like the fact that it's hard hitting as well. It doesn't let you off the hook. He basically says you are responsible for your entire life. You are to blame for all the things that go wrong as well. Change your thoughts, you can change your life. What a powerful and brilliant message. Next one, moving on to Atomic Habits. Now, this is a recent one. It's been super popular. I think this book has sold well over 10 million copies, maybe 15 million copies. And I hate to say it, but I don't know why. I found this pretty ordinary. There was nothing dramatically insightful. It's obviously a book about habits, how habits can change your life, but he doesn't give that much information, sort of a list of what empowering habits you might take on. It's more of a exploration of why habits are powerful. And yes, there are some very interesting stories, some good examples in there, but this was just a bit of a nothing book to me, really, and I'm going to put it into the C category. Now, a little caveat here, and there's a caveat with this book and another one. I listened to it rather than reading it, and I think that may have somewhat damaged my experience or reduced my experience of the book. So I'd be more than willing to shift that into the B category if I actually sat down and read a copy rather than just listening it to on audiobook. But for now, I'm going to keep it in that C category. Then we move on to a book by an author called Felix Dennis called How to Get Rich. Now, this is one you may not have heard of. Felix Dennis was a UK publisher. He owned Maxim magazine, and at one point he was incredibly wealthy. He's dead now, but I think his wealth was valued at well over $500 million, and he made it entirely from publishing. Now, the premises of this book is he hates self-help books, and he says that quite explicitly in his book, and says they're writing about things they don't know how to do. I'm a multi-millionaire, almost a billionaire. I know how to do it. Listen to me. And the book is entertaining, it's funny, it's insightful. A key takeaway tends to be about ownership and how you've got to own things to really get rich. Now, I'm going to give this a very high rating. I really recommend this. You can't go wrong with that book. It's an enjoyable experience, and it's going to teach you things. Then we move on to How to Win Friends and Influence People. Now, this is one of the all-time classics of the self-help literature. I came to this quite late in the personal development world. I think I'd been reading personal development books for almost 20 years until I read this. And I read it with a little bit of trepidation. I thought, this is going to be a little bit boring. It's going to be nothing new, but I feel like I should read it. And boy, was I surprised. It was really fresh, insightful, interesting examples, really, really well written. And he shed insights on an area where I thought it was just going to be mundane, regular advice. There's quite a lot of deep psychology in this on how to influence people. For that reason, I don't say I enjoy it quite as much as How to Get Rich, but to give it a B would be a little bit disrespectful. So I'm going to give it an A. Then we move on to the Celestine Prophecy. Now, this is the book that the first self-help book I ever read, first self-help / spiritual book I ever read. And as a result, I may be a little bit biased to it. And I'm also going to include with the Celestine Prophecy its follow-up, the 10th Insight, which after reading part of that, I had a huge spiritual experience. So I'm a little impartial to this book. And I know there is criticism because the book is a novel. It's in the mold of The Alchemist. And if you're wondering why The Alchemist isn't on this list, it will be in part 2. But this book is a bit of a novel. So he tells a story of an exploration in Peru, looking for all these manuscripts. And together there are 9 insights in total. And once you collect them, you have the Celestine Prophecy. Now, I thought this book was mind-blowing to me, eye-opening to me. It started me on my spiritual journey. So I am going to also put it in that S category, the GOAT of self-help and spiritual books. I know there's criticism saying it's badly written, but I didn't really notice that, to be honest. I just enjoyed the book so much, the story, the insights he was sharing, that I was fully gripped, and any poor writing that there may have been, I didn't really notice. Then we're moving on to a modern one, Ryan Holiday's The Obstacle is the Way. Very popular book. He writes on Stoicism and Stoic philosophy. And like Atomic Habits, this is a book that I listen to. And as a result of that, I'm afraid perhaps I'm going to have to mark it down. Again, maybe if I read the book, I'd have been a bit more into it. Now, The Obstacle in the Way hasn't sold as many copies as Atomic Habits, but it has been popular. But for me, it's quite an ordinary book. Again, like Atomic Habits, lots of interesting examples and stories, but he's not really sharing any amazing insights. Yes, Stoic philosophy is useful, but you can read about Stoic philosophy in a blog post. You can learn what it's about and implement it in your life. You don't really need a book dedicated to it. And because of that, because I feel it's weak on insights, and because I listen to it rather than reading it, maybe I'm going to put it alongside Atomic Habits in the C category. Maybe if I read those books, I'd still put them as a C. But as I said, for now, I can only grade them according to my experience with the book. So now we move on to another classic, which is The Power of Now. Now, The Power of Now is a strange book because on the one hand, you've got an incredibly powerful insight. On the other hand, you've got a little bit of a boring book, which goes on and makes the same point again and again. So how do you grade it? You've got an insight that's worthy of the S category. You've got a book that's probably, or parts of the book that are probably worthy of the C category. And I think this is when it comes to grading self-help books, you look at the insights and you look at the entertainment value and you look at the examples they share, and then you grade accordingly. So this is difficult because I'm certainly not going to put it in the C category because the insight is just so powerful. And when you apply it to your life, you can really improve your life in a dramatic way. But the book is a little long-winded. It's written as in a response to questions. So Eckhart Tolle, the author, has obviously been asked various different questions about this concept of living in the now and he writes his answers. So it's not a book in the sense that other books are. It's just a response to questions. So it could easily go in the A category, even the S category, but I'm actually going to put it in the B category because it's not the most entertaining of reads. Moving on to The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. Now, again, I'm a little impartial to this book. This is the book that after the Celestine prophecy, changed my life because it introduced me to how a set of tools, a way in which I could transform my life. And it also introduced me to the fact that our subconscious mind is the thing that determines so many things, so many outcomes in our lives. Joseph Murphy, the author, is a brilliant teacher. He simplifies the whole concept of how you can influence your subconscious mind to make changes in your day-to-day life. How you can use it really to create the life of your dreams, to heal ailments that you might have. It is, every page just seemed to heal my soul while I was reading it. It's well written. It's not packed full of examples. Well, he does use examples, but they're more personal examples of the people he has helped throughout his long career. And the insight is just incredibly powerful. So you probably guessed it, that is going in the S category, right at the very top. Moving on to The Secret. Now, The Secret, like How to Win Friends and Influence People, is something I came across quite late. I know it was released in 2006, and I've been reading self-help books since 2000, but I was always resistant. I heard some bad reviews, heard that it was bullshit, basically. So I was always thinking, oh, what's the point in reading it? It's a law of attraction book, and the Power of Your Subconscious Mind could be called a law of attraction book. So I've read about that, and I've learnt about that. Why do I need to read The Secret? Well, I took the plunge, and I was pleasantly surprised. I do like the layout of the book. It's a little bit different. I read the paperback or the hardback. The insights are good. Yes, it's a little basic. It doesn't really go into how you're going to apply the law of attraction. But then again, if it started going into the difficulties and the negatives and the struggles people have with the law of attraction, it may not be true to this concept of, you know, your higher vibration attracting all these good things into your life. That's all you need to know, essentially. So why do I need to write about how difficult it's going to be? Because if I write about how difficult it's going to become difficult. So I kind of get why they didn't go into greater detail. And the book really hit me, you know. It gave me that really good feeling that amazing things could happen in my life. And I know that the law of attraction is real from my own experiments. I don't think it works exactly as they say in The Secret, but it's a very uplifting, positive book. It could be in the B category, but I'm going to be generous and go with A. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, Mark Manson. Again, super popular book. I think this has sold well over 10 million copies. If it's close to Atomic Habits, if not more sales. And I'd put Atomic Habits, Obstacle is the Way, and the Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck in the sort of current genre, the current new voices in self-help. And much like the Atomic Habits and the Obstacle is the Way, I don't think they're as good as the old voices in self-help. But I did read this book rather than listen to it. And I did think it was better than Atomic Habits and The Obstacle is the Way. I mean, the title itself, to me, is why this book has sold many copies. It's obviously a great title. It's got the word fuck in it, which for some reason, if you put the word fuck in your title, that automatically seems to mean you're going to sell over 1 million copies. Loads of copycats came out and started doing that, which I think is really dumb, but to readers it seems to work. So the title is fantastic. The book is entertaining. It's a good read, and he has lots of interesting examples. The insights are pretty good, but one of them is about being ordinary and why it's good to have an ordinary life. And coming from a guy who sold 15 million copies of his books, who clearly doesn't live an ordinary life, I took umbrage at that. I thought, why is he telling his readers to live an ordinary life when he clearly doesn't? So that I didn't like that so much. Some of the jokes are a bit lame. You know, he tries to swear a lot, and it's a little bit cringy, but it's still an entertaining and a good book. I'm going to put it as a B. Now, the 5-second rule. I included this on my list because, as you'll see, I'm not ripping too many of these books. So I thought, well, I've got to have one at least in my D category, one which I criticize a little bit. And it's a little harsh to criticize her book because, again, it's a very good concept. The idea is you give yourself 5 seconds, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom, you go and do it. You take action. You get out of your head, you get into the world. Really good concept, good TED Talk. It's not a book, though. It could be a blog post at most. She fills some of the pages with tweets from her readers. I mean, if you've got to use tweets from your followers in your book, it shows you that you're struggling for content. So despite such a good concept, the book itself is really not very good. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, another classic. This, I think, has sold 20 to 30 million, released in the late 80s by Stephen Covey. It's a sort of business management classic book, but I guess it's life management as well. But unfortunately, I found this really pretty boring. Some of the insights were good and interesting, and I actually read a copy which had his son, who I think is called Stephen Covey as well, had written sections at the end of each chapter, which were really quite interesting, much more interesting than what his dad had written. But I was bored reading this book. I did take 1 or 2 things away from it, and I was thinking, man, is this really the book everyone raves about? I guess maybe if I had a bit more of a business mindset, or I was running a large company, it might be useful. But to me, on a personal level, I did find it a little bit boring with 1 or 2 good insights, and I'm going to put that as a C. So The Obstacle in the Way and Atomic Habits were more interesting than 7 Highly Effective People, but the insights in 7 Highly Effective People were a little bit better than those 2 books. So now we move on to the 48 Laws of Power, which for me is a really unique book in this. I guess it's a little bit like How to Win Friends and Influence People, because we're dealing with the subject of influence and how you develop power. But it's not a very positive book, and that's what's so unique about it. He is, Robert Greene, the author, is teaching you how to be Machiavellian. It's teaching you how to operate in the world. And the key principle is basically, it's not enough to just be a good person. Don't think, oh, I'm a good person. That means I'm going to be successful in life because I'm nice to everyone. The world doesn't work that way. And Robert Greene shows you how the world works. It is a genius book. I could easily put this in the S category, but it's a little long-winded. Some of the fables and examples in their book are a little bit boring, and I found myself skipping through those. So I feel if he'd have edited it down a little bit, this is absolutely an S category book. The insights are incredible, and his explanation in writing is brilliant, but just because it's a little long-winded, it's going to slip from that S category down into the A. And then we move on to Think and Grow Rich, which again is another classic, probably the 3rd oldest book in this list, behind As a Man Thinketh and How to Win Friends. A good book, but I wasn't blown away. For me, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind is much, much better. It's much more focused. I think Think and Grow Rich scatters off into different subjects. He's teaching you how to write a CV at some point. So it lost me a little bit. It could have been edited down. The insights are good, but you're going to get better insights in The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, As a Man Thinketh, and Celestine Prophecy. So for me, I'm going to put that in the B category, despite it being many people's favorite. There's also some skepticism about his initial story or premise of the book, that he spoke to Carnegie. Not the Carnegie who's the author of How to Win Friends, not Dale Carnegie, I can't remember his first name, but the steel magnate, and that he shared all of these amazing secrets with him. Well, there are a few articles online debunking that story, claiming that Napoleon Hill may have made a lot of it up. Nonetheless, the book is still good, but just not quite, for me, rating as high as some of the others. So the last one, another one you may not have heard of, 50 Self-Help Classics. Now this, you may say, why have I included on the list? Because it's not a book in its own right. It's a book which looks at 50 classics in the self-help fields and writes commentaries on them. However, I feel it is a book in its own right because it is so brilliantly done. The author is Tom Butler Bowden, and he has a way of bringing each book to life, each commentary to life, and it's a far better way of reading some of the books than spending, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month going through a book where you may only get one insight, useful insight out of it. Why not just read Tom's book and get a useful insight in 4 pages? Not only that, get 50 useful insights, because he seems to cipher out the most pertinent information and brings it to life. He's an interesting writer, not just a good writer, but he makes each book come to life in its own right. I would put this in the S category because it had an amazing impact on me, but at the same time, I know people will be critical and say, oh, it's not a book in its own right, he's only writing commentaries. So I will go with the A category, but for me, this book had a similar sort of impact that the top 3 did. Now, looking at that list, would I revise anything? I feel a bit bad of The Power of Now. I could put that easily in the A category. I could drop How to Win Friends and Influence People down to the B category. Could drop The Secret down to the B category. But apart from that, I'm happy with my entire list. And as I mentioned, 50 self-help classics and the 48 laws of power, if it wasn't for just 1 or 2 little things, they would find themselves in the S category as well. Also, I'm open to the fact that the Celestine Prophecy, maybe because it was the first one I'd ever read, it's not quite as good as I remember, but nobody's convincing me to move As a Man Thinketh or The Power of Your Subconscious Mind down. So that's my tier list. If you like that, please like and subscribe to the channel. Say in the comment section that you want another one. I do plan to make a part 2 of this video. I just wanted to be relatively brief, although I'm guessing I've probably gone to well over 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes on this video. But had I had 30 books there, we'd have been talking about an hour plus video. So let me know if you want a part 2. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.